Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Think Like a Thought Leader show, where Black entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers like you come to learn how to build wealth related to the work you're called to do in the world. Now, the Black Lives Matter movement has pushed society to see just how deep racism, discrimination, and bias run in this country. And it seems like 2020 has a lot of people waking up to what's really necessary for not just our survival, but our overall success as a community. And it's painfully clear that economic equality and empowerment are keys to true freedom for us. And so we often talk amongst ourselves about how Black people built this country for free, but we need to really get to the heart of what that really means. As an enslaved people, our physical labor was the most obvious thing that was stolen from us, right? But history tells us that fact is far more layered than many people realize. So not only did this country benefit from hundreds of years of free physical labor, which built the economy quickly and cheaply, this country also benefited from another kind of labor that we provided that's proven to be priceless, and that's our ideas. Black cultural production is the reason why things like societal musical trends, certain turns of phrases and catchy phrases and fashion trends tend to mirror our tastes. But for centuries, we haven't gotten our due because of the systematic and institutionalized way racism rears its ugly head. So I often talk about how the mission of my company is to help build Black wealth. And I believe that today's show is really, really going to hit home for you if you're a creative entrepreneur with tons of amazing ideas, because today I have one of the go-to trademark attorneys for Black creative entrepreneurs here with me, Ticora Davis. She's here to talk about how you can protect and profit from your ideas through trademarks. And Ticora is a go-to trademark attorney for those creative entrepreneurs. They call on her when they want to protect their smarts, and she successfully registered 98.5% of the trademarks filed through her firm. And she was recently named as one of Business North Carolina's Legal Elite, which is a listing of the state's top lawyers in business-related categories. So I'm super excited to have her with me. Here she is. Welcome, Ticora. How you doing?
Thank you also. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to have this conversation today with you and with your audience. So thank you so much.
Thanks for making the time. Now, if you're listening to this and you know that you need to learn what you need to do to legally ensure that you can profit from your God-given ideas, or you want to understand how you can avoid even accidentally stealing from someone else's ideas, because we're going to get into that today too, then you want to tune in. We have a lot to cover today, but first, I want you to go ahead and share this with a friend, a creative entrepreneur, someone who has called you recently and said, I have an idea. I want you to share this with them right now by hitting that share button or tagging them in the comments. And of course, as always, if you have any questions for us during the course of our discussion, don't hesitate to drop them in the comments, because Ticora is here today to drop some gems. So Ticora, can you give the audience an overview of your work and the greater mission that fuels it?
Sure. Yeah. So I am obviously Ticora Davis. I own The Creators Law Firm. We are a boutique intellectual property and business law firm. We help experts and entrepreneurs protect their brand so that they can grow their business with peace of mind. Most people come to me for trademark legal services, but we also offer some other services that can help you start and scale your business, such as our legal subscription programs that start at $199 a month that provide you with access to us as your attorneys, as well as many other types of things, including like a contract template library, us reviewing your agreements before you step into bed with somebody in terms of business, and other things. So a lot of our work centers around protecting and promoting the creative genius of Black and Brown people. I would say about 95% of my clients are Black women, but we serve everybody. But I'm really happy to have a premier law firm that positions itself to protect Black entrepreneurs, because too often in this country have our smarts, our intellectual genius been capitalized, stolen, and that profit does not come back to us, nor does the credit either. And so I would love to get into that too shortly.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I'm really glad that you mentioned that because it's important to set some context here. Historically, we've legally had few rights to our own ideas and inventions. In fact, Black cultural production again fuels innovation in this country, and it's about time for us to profit from it, right?
Yeah.
So, why do you believe it's important for Black entrepreneurs to hold trademarks to their ideas?
Well, for a variety of reasons. The trademark is the only type of intellectual asset, intellectual property that does not have a time span. If you look at patents, the time span that you can own the right to a patent is 21 years. People will say 20, but then there's another year for the utility or non-provisional, provisional ideas. But anyway, 21 years for a patent, utility patent. For the copyright, there's a limitation there as well. So basically, you own the right to the copyright for the life of you as the creator, plus 75 years. Your estate can have rights to it, but then that lapses and it expires, excuse me. But the trademark is the only type of intellectual property, really, that can go on in perpetuity as long as you're using it. This is why we see companies like, back in the day, it used to be Wachovia or Wells Fargo. Some of these banks and other institutions have been around for decades, let alone centuries, and they have been able to retain ownership over their brand identity as well as the market share by virtue of the trademark.
Wow. Listen, you just taught me something in that last 2 minutes that I didn't even know. And this is why I love having conversations with amazing experts like yourself. So again, if you're tuning in right now, I think you need to go get a pen and pad or
Yeah.
grab your phone and take some notes because we're going to get into some really interesting stuff for creative entrepreneurs and the things that we really need to know. So I'm glad that you mentioned the copyright and the patent in sort of your overview, because there's some people that may be watching who don't understand the differences between all three. So
Yeah.
what are the differences between a trade beyond, the span of time that it protects someone or their idea? What are the key differences between a trademark, a copyright, and a patent?
Oh, great question. I love explaining this on my discovery calls because people often say, well, I want to copyright my name or I want to patent my name. And that's just not possible, right? So
Okay.
here's how I compare it. There's an umbrella of intellectual property law, and let's compare it to the umbrella of criminal law. So I'm holding an umbrella, and underneath the umbrella of criminal law, there could be a robbery. Someone committing a robbery is a type of crime, but also so is a speeding ticket. Right? So they're both different types of crimes that fall underneath the umbrella, but they're different severities, right? Similarly, intellectual property is an umbrella. Underneath that umbrella, we have patents, trademarks, copyrights, personality rights, and trade secrets. These are 5 different types of intellectual property. Intellectual property is a catch-all phrase that essentially means there's some type of genius or idea that you have brought into the world. It's not the idea itself, it's how it's been executed. Personality rights is your right to control how your name, your image, your likeness shows up in a commercial space. If somebody's going to use your brand, use your name, we see this a lot with celebrities to promote a product or service, they have control over that. Trade secrets are like, the Coca-Cola formula that's locked up in the vault in Atlanta. If Coca-Cola decided to publish the recipe by copywriting it, really what would happen is the entire world would know the contents of the recipe. So instead of exposing what makes the formula, they have protected that via a trade secret. And so trade secrets they could be your customer and supplier list. They could be your unique products and formulas. For coaches, it may even be your frameworks, right? It could be any of that stuff, but that's going to be protected by a contract. And we see that with the confidentiality agreements and non-disclosure agreements, or NDAs. Moving on to patents, a patent will protect an invention that must have a novel, and novel is a term of art, what basically means it's an improvement, non-obvious improvement on an invention or an existing invention, something new that's never existed in the world before. This could be the engine of a car to the circuitry in your iPhone, but there are patents that are involved in all of those things. Copyright will protect a literary or artistic work. So think of books, poetry, and then creative works or even this broadcast itself. So Courtney should hold the copyright to this broadcast. It could be podcasts, whether it's video or audio, photography, videography, choreography, sculptures, digital art, digital designs, that type of stuff. And sometimes recipes that are not just a mere recitation of facts or recitation of ingredients. That's why when you go on a blog, you see the blogger tells their entire life story before they get to the recipe. I'm like, can I just figure out how to make these muffins, you know?
Right. Like I have to scroll.
I'm like, I don't care about what, what's happening in Wichita. Like, can you tell me how to do this? But
Right.
they're doing that for a reason, right? Because, well, some of them are, and some of them may just be verbose, but them actually adding a story in connection with the recipe will allow them to have some type of copyrightable element to that. If you just said, here is the recipe, you put the oven on at 350, you do XYZ, you really can't copyright that because it's just, reciting directions. There's nothing novel about that. You need to have some type of story element combined, which is kind of what we see in those cookbooks, right? And then
Right.
trademarks. Trademarks are really, think of the name. It's a mark, which is a word, symbol, logo, tagline. In very rare cases, a trademark can be a scent, a sound, a color, used in connection
Yes.
with a trade, which is your business.
Okay.
So it's really in the name. The mark is going to help people identify your trade, your business, as a source identifier. So we know that Think Like a Thought Leader is Courtney's trademark. It helps us identify this particular podcast as the source of this content. So this is why people are going to be tuning in. They know that this is a podcast that has, juicy information for entrepreneurs and experts. And so we're going to be able to distinguish this podcast separate and apart from other people. And so that's how a trademark will work. A trademark, again, you can have multiple trademarks within your business. My law firm, The Creators Law Firm, that's what I like to call my house mark. A house mark is kind of like a catch-all trademark, and there can be multiple trademarks underneath that. So like Victoria's Secret, house mark. Pink Collection is a submark. It's still a trademark, but it's all kind of falling underneath that particular brand. So this is important for people who are coaches and consultants. You might have a main business name, but you could offer a variety of products, programs, books, etc., that contain multiple trademarks.
Woo, you just gave us a master class.
I love it. I can talk about this stuff all day long. So yeah, I can even share some naming concepts. Well, here's the thing about me. When I started my law firm, and this was about 3.5 years ago, one of the things that I looked up was, why do people hate attorneys? And one of the things that they said is that, attorneys speak in a different language. They're speaking in legalese, and it doesn't help people understand what's happening. They are disempowered after interacting with them. And so I said, I'll be the antithesis of that. Every single thing that people said was wrong with attorneys, I said, I'm intentionally going to build my law firm as the anti-lawyer law firm, right? And so that's why I speak the way that I speak, because I want you to walk away knowing that's the difference between these three things. I completely understand what Ticora said. She broke it down in examples that are tangible and easy for me to remember, that are going to stick, because at the end of the day, we have to be able to disseminate this information to our community and be able to tell people, no, you cannot mail your idea to yourself and call it a poor man's trademark and think that's acceptable by law, because it's not.
Because I've heard that. I've heard some people say, oh, this is all you need to do in order to secure your trademark. And we're going to get to some of the myths about how people, believe they're falsely protected, or, the information that people believe that they can use on behalf of their brands that might be someone else's. So I love that you actually touched on that. I want to back up and talk a little bit more about your journey, because as I was doing my research for the show, I noticed that you have a very powerful story. And I also stumbled on the statistic that said only 5% of lawyers in the US are Black. So can you talk about your journey into law? Talk about how you decided to actually venture out and create the Creators Law Firm, and what drove you to do all of that?
Sure. Gosh, it's every time I tell it, it feels like the first time. So I went to school at North Carolina State University, and I have a bachelor's biological sciences degree. So I thought I wanted to be a doctor. Along the pursuit of that, I wasn't really pursuing my dreams. I've actually said I wanted to be a lawyer ever since I was like 8 years old. And just along the way, I think I kind of lost the sight of that. And in the pursuit of trying to do something to make my parents proud, I realized, gosh, this is not what I want to do. But I've got a year left in this degree, and I'm totally going to get it, right? Well, in the midst of performing research on genetically modified tomatoes, specifically doing research on an extreme heat thermophile, which is Pyrococcus furiosus, which is basically we did a double transgenic line in these tomatoes to see if we could increase their heat tolerance. So I realized in this scientific laboratory, this was my first introduction to intellectual property law. I did not know that you could get a patent on a genetically modified tomato. I didn't understand that. And this is where my Dr. Wendy Boss, who was my lab supervisor, she was telling us about the fusion of science and the law, that there's a way that the two can come together. My interaction with lawyers up until that point as a 20-something-year-old was, well, lawyers are people who go into courtrooms and they litigate and they fight for people. And, maybe it's someone who commits a crime or something like that. I had no idea that there was a facet of law that really helped people protect their ideas until that moment in that lab. Went on, graduated, went to DC, was a staff assistant for Congresswoman Marcia Fudge. So I spent some time in the nation's capital. And I think that was pivotal to reignite and rebirth that desire to pursue law. Because at that point, I'm like, I know I don't want to do anything in science. I almost felt like that was the only thing I could do. But then going there and really getting an introduction to things, I said, I can go to law school and I can become a patent attorney. That's what I thought I wanted to do. And I had the background to do it. And patent attorneys, again, they help people protect their inventions. Went to law school, took some patent courses, always wanted to take a trademark course, but it could never fit into my schedule. Took the bar, failed the bar by 5 points, devastated, then got a job offer a week later as an intellectual property analyst. So they were really impressed with the fact that I had a science degree and a law degree, even though I hadn't passed the bar. And they were saying, wow, your unique background could be helpful to us. And that was in 2014. And
that's a lesson right there. I would like to pause and talk about that a little bit. And I don't want to interrupt your story because it is a powerful one. But we can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep on going, right? In the midst of disappointment, because I know the bar is a big deal. I've had a couple of friends take it, and it's like, it is major, right? But what I really, really admire about your story is that you were still able to get opportunity because you had prepared yourself and you had given, you had really studied the background of science and law, and those two things intersected so that you could actually walk into your calling. So for those of you who are in the midst of, walking into that, stepping into that thing that you're supposed to do, your purpose, don't be discouraged by obstacles, by disappointments, by rejection, because that could be redirection. Okay.
No, it's so good. I remember just the devastation of not passing the bar and just crying in my husband's arms. And we were newlyweds. He was probably married for 3 months, and I'm just crying. And I remember after I had a good cry, I said, oh, well, I guess I have to take it again. I just was like, I'm not going to be mad. I'm upset, but hey. And then a week later, it's like, wow, I got a job offer, and people who passed the bar still don't have jobs. So I was very delighted. And so I said, I'm just going to study. And the thing about it is that I made passing the bar an idol. I had that on my mind all the time, pursuing it, neglecting other things in terms of like, you know, my personal relationship with Christ, probably my marriage at the time. It consumed me. And it's a thing that can consume you. And I've had to watch for that same beast try to creep back in when it comes to building this business. And so I have to check myself a lot to make sure I have that balance, because I realize when I have things out of order, destruction or disappointment can come in. But either way, I got back on it. I was, you know, in this new job, and I thought, wow, this is really awesome. You know, as an intellectual property or IP analyst, I was actually responsible for seeing all these ideas that people had and then looking them over and determining, is this eligible for patent protection? Also, if it is it something that consumers would even want to purchase? Like, what is the commerciability and marketability of this particular idea? Because the place that I worked at was kind of like, we'll take your idea. We have a team of engineers that can build it. That, as seen on TV, was in the same building. So, and they would put it on the shelves of stores. So I got to see like an entire product's life cycle, you know, where I was at. But I was like the first stop, because if it wasn't eligible for IP protection, then it didn't matter, because they couldn't even pursue it. And so as I began to look at hundreds of ideas and kind of vet them, I, of course, was sitting here thinking like, okay. And after a while, I got really good at it. And then I ended up passing the bar while I was there. And even though I passed the bar, I was like, hey, I passed the bar. You guys can utilize me as an attorney. There are other things that I can do. But really, even though they knew I had that skill set, they didn't tap into that. They basically just said, no, you're the IP analyst, continue to vet these ideas. And so that kind of, you know, made me a little frustrated. But either way, I continued to hone the gift. What I did not like was anything dealing with the patent searches. I didn't really dig that. But the part that I loved was interacting with so many inventors and seeing how passionate they were about their ideas. And even in that season, I didn't want to be an entrepreneur. Like, I just said, I'm going to go on and I'll work at somebody's law firm, you know. And I knew, I said, well, I know I want to work in this space, you know, and I'll think I'll be a patent attorney. But I didn't realize that my respect for people who are creatives was being honed and even developed in that season. I didn't understand how passionate people could be about their ideas until having that time where I was being able to interact with people. My husband and I, we ended up saying, okay, we want to have a baby. And I got pregnant, super excited about that. And then when about 4 months pregnant, they were like, okay, so we're actually going to kind of start laying people off because this business model is not working. So I'm like, OMG, like, I'm pregnant, first kid, you know. Hey, Kira's my doula, she's on. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, you know. So for me, I'm like, I gotta, like, cue Hamilton. I'm not gonna miss my shot. Like, okay, I got laid off. I gotta go and find a job. My husband's like, just chill. I got us. Nope.
Yeah.
I couldn't. So I went, and a colleague of mine basically said, hey, here's a guy. He's in town. He's a Black man. He's an entertainment lawyer. He's looking for another associate. I go, I'm like 5.5 months pregnant. You know, he interviews me and he's like, I'm going to hire you on the spot. And I'm like, this is a dream. Like, I was like, I accept. Didn't even talk to my husband about it. I was like, I accept this position, blah, blah, blah. I came home. I was excited. My husband was like, okay. Thought we would talk about this, but okay. And that was me. I was just like, I've got to go. And I almost felt like, I think sometimes even on this entrepreneurial journey, you feel like I can't stop. I can't rest.
Yes. Yeah.
And you feel like resting, even though that's exactly what I should have been doing. Instead of me resting, I jumped head first into a situation. I was going into this law office. I was working. And then shortly after I was there, it really turned into like a really bad, toxic work environment. I was excited because he was an entertainment lawyer. I was going to be working with creatives. I thought, this is the perfect job. This is what I wanted. And it ended up becoming a nightmare. I mean, someone getting in your face and yelling at you, cussing you out, kind of like trying to attack your intelligence. I don't know what they taught you at your school. You're like, what the heck? For me,
Abuse.
yeah, definitely verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and almost making you shell shocked, and for me, I was like, okay, I'm pregnant and I'm just going to be apathetic. Like, I mean, if he's going to be yelling at me, I'm not going to internalize it because it's going to affect my son, and I don't need this job. I'm just trying to come and get some experience. And, went through that, ended up doing great work for him, even if he didn't want to admit it. But the crazy part about this is, again, I didn't learn a thing about trademarks. He used me basically as a legal assistant. So he just was like, you need to learn. He was like, we need systems in this law firm because our systems are all over the place. Can you figure out how to fix our systems? And I'm like, okay, fine. So I'm like taking courses, like free courses, legal training courses about how can you build systems in a law firm and how can you talk to clients on the phone. I didn't realize that was like entrepreneurial boot camp.
Yes.
I didn't know you needed to know systems. I didn't know you needed to have SOPs and how do you treat clients and payment processing and engagement agreements and intake forms. I didn't know all of that until I was there for those 3 months working. And again, I didn't learn it. He can't say he taught me anything about trademarks because I didn't do one trademark while I was there, but I learned how to run a business,
Wow, which prepared you for what you're doing now.
Yeah. And so even in that, and I'll try to finish my story. So I take maternity leave. I have my son, and the whole thing about it was, hey, when you're ready to come back, we'll start giving you some work to do. And so I said, okay, have my son. I think I contacted him like maybe 10 days after my baby was here. And I said, hey, I've had the baby. I'm pretty sure I'll be up and ready to kind of take some cases in 2 or 3 weeks from now. And he was like, oh, I'm happy you reached out. Do you have some time to chat on the phone? I said, sure. We get on the phone together and he's like, oh, well, congrats on the baby and everything like that. And he goes, I've been thinking about this since you left and I no longer think you'll be fit for the success of this firm. I think you need to stay home and focus on healing and get over your pregnancy brain.
What?
Yeah. I'll never forget what he said. I was holding my son in my arms when he said, I was holding Miles in my arms and I looked down at Miles and I really could not muster up anything to say to him of substance. I think I was shocked, but not really shocked because I knew he was a cruel person. And I just said, you know what, thank you for the opportunity, and I got off the phone with him. And the entire time I was on maternity leave, I had been trying to ask myself, do I even want to go back in this situation?
Yeah.
I felt like I had no choice. The legal market is tough. I was sitting here like, I felt like, again, sometimes you feel like this is your only chance. This is my only opportunity. I have to stay in this bad place. Now, and that's what I felt. I felt like that was my only shot. And so, after that, I said, okay, kind of just rested in that. And then I started doing some contract legal work. I applied for over 100 jobs. Nobody called me. And after doing that for several months, being paid as little as $18 an hour as a contract attorney, and really, I have a lot of student loan debt, right? And to pay that for my knowledge, it was, I don't want to say insulting, but it certainly wasn't what I was expecting. And so I think after doing that for about 3 or 4 months, I realized, and this was in October 2016, and I was just driving down the road, taking my son to the doctor. And I said, God, that just was, I know I probably like a crazy lady, but I was like, I'll just go talk to God. And I was like, God, I know you can open a door for me. I said, you have not opened one door. I've been applying for all these jobs. Nobody's calling me back. And I said, are you trying to tell me I'm supposed to open up my own law firm? And this peace just came over me, because actually after seeing how he ran his firm, I was like, well, I'm confident if people are paying this joker, I could do it.
And you helped refine the systems in his whole firm. So why not?
So, and I'm driving down the road and I was like, God, am I supposed to open my law firm? And it was like I said, this peace came over me. And I said, I told you I didn't want to do that. I did not to open my own law firm.
Don't we be having those conversations with God? Like, you know what? Really?
Like, fine. And I just was like, I'm just gonna submit to this, whatever, because I was like, I would come home every day from that contract job, and I would tell my husband, babe, I'm not gonna make it here for 6 months. It ain't gonna work. Something's gonna have to change, you know. And anyway, when I had that peace come over me and I had a little tantrum, I said, fine. Well, I'm not calling it the law office of Ticora Davis. Okay. I remember saying this, I said, it ain't gonna happen. I said, so what am I gonna call myself? And I don't think this is the only time in my life I've heard the audible voice of God. He said, you're my lawyer, the creator's lawyer. So
wow.
That's why my law firm is called the Creator's Law Firm. It's God's law firm, and I'm getting chills, but I also serve creators.
I just got chills, literally. Like when you said that, I was like, wow, yes.
So that's why, the business name is the business name. And, I after that, and I want to encourage everybody, like, that was a really hard time to really feel like, okay, what's happening? Nothing I'm doing is working. And you feel like your back is being pushed against the wall. And it was. Because there was like, you're either gonna, if you get pushed against the wall, you're either gonna crumble in a ball or you go fight your way out. That's what you're gonna do. You're gonna be in a fetal position and you're gonna crumble with what life throws at you, or you're gonna fight back. And at that moment, I said, I'm gonna fight back. And I would go, and especially for you all working jobs and you hate the job, I began to change my mindset about the job, because I remember this planner I had, and in the corner of the planner, it says, the best way to predict the future is to create it. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln. And so from that moment on, I said, I'm going to create my future. And so in 2016, I would be doing my work with my left hand. I'm not even left-handed, but I would tweet with my little mouse and I would do my work. And in my right hand, I would be writing. And I would say, the Creators Law Firm is going to be the premier law firm for small business owners and experts and entrepreneurs. I'm going to be the go-to trademark attorney for creatives. I had not filed one trademark, but I was speaking this all of my life and writing.
Wow.
Right? And I said, I'm going to have a team and everybody's going to be safe that works for me. I needed that experience to see what a toxic work environment was like and how you can cripple people. You can correct somebody without crushing them, And so
that's a word.
Yes, it's a quotable.
Yeah, that's right.
And so, I've said, okay, I'm going to start my own law firm. And I said, I'm going to open it up in August 2017. My son will be a year. That'll be good time to save up some money. And my pastor called me up in December 2016, my pastor called me up and he said, the Lord says, make haste, open your law firm as fast as you can. He's going to send you clients from all over the world, all over the country. People will want to buy your law firm, but you need to move now. And I said, that ain't the plan, God.
But while I was getting ready, like I was preparing. Yeah, right.
Again, I'm still working that terrible job. It was right before our first Christmas. We just moved into a new house. Like, I'm just like, okay, we got like an extra $300, and I said, all right, I'm taking this. And I got my permission from the state bar to open a firm, filed my LLC. Y'all, I filed my own LLC paperwork wrong. I halfway know what I was doing. I said, what kind of lawyer am I to file my own documents wrong? Fix that. And then I opened the law firm January 16th, 2017. In a week after I opened, I had a phone call from a producer at VH1 asking me to be on a TV show.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when your pastor said make haste,
he meant that thing.
He meant it. He meant that thing.
You have to take a word and you have to kind of move with it. And so I just said, I had this blind faith, like if God is, calling me up and telling me this, like about what he's given me, I better move, right? Or if the window of opportunity will pass. And I truly believe it was because that opportunity was for me. What I love about God too is that, I literally had just opened the firm. Like they were my first client, VH1. And the opportunity came to me because I had a colleague that I went to law school with. And he went to high school with a producer at VH1 who reached out to him and said, we need some type of business or entertainment lawyer. And so that guy, his name is Stephen Corby, he said to me, yeah, Ticora, I really hope it works out. He said, I only know of you and the guy you used to work with, the one we do not speak of, who does this area of law. He said, but I don't like him. So I wasn't going to tell him about this opportunity. So the man who fired me, he didn't like him. So he wasn't going to tell him about this amazing opportunity, which would have been perfect for him. He was an entertainment lawyer.
Yeah.
So, your enemies will be your footstool. So once I opened it up, it was hard in the beginning. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know who my ideal client was, but I began to invest in myself. And I really grinded really hard because I knew that VH1 episode was coming out in 4 or 5 months. And I really think that helped solidify my credibility. But also what solidified my credibility was me actually showing up, continuing to improve, do what I do, and serve people with a spirit of excellence. And so I just continue to do that to this day. And God has really taken me from glory to glory. Facebook reached out in 2018 and they said, we want to do a mini documentary on your law firm, and so they came in, and I had to share that with you. They came in and they kind of shot me. I'm in my office, which is my closet right now. This is where I call it my cloffice, my closet office. So, I go live in here because, you're not thinking I need a full office in my house and stuff like that.
Right, yeah.
That's even something I was considering, but man, it's very humbling. I've worked with hundreds of Black business owners throughout the years. On average, we file 100 trademarks a year. I've learned so much about just the capability that I have. And you just don't know. I feel like this year, even just prospering in the midst of a pandemic, it's just indicative of, how favored this firm is. It's God's firm. And I said, this firm is not going to fail. God's name is on it. So, that's my story.
I love it.
It's a long story, but it's a good story. It's a powerful story, and I just am so thankful that I didn't step into agreement with what my ex-boss was trying to say about me. And he was right.
That's it.
He tried to say I wasn't a good fit, and he was right. I wasn't a good fit. And I think he doubted me. And he gave me the gift of doubt. And some of us people, they give you the gift of doubt, but you don't have to agree with them. The doubt is actually what makes you have a fantastic and beautiful story. And so people will will you to win by virtue of someone who kind of doesn't think that you're capable. People love rooting for the underdog. And so I'm so thankful, even with working with him and how terrible that was, because I gained a knowledge set and a skill set that allow me to understand some foundational business principles, but also what is it like when you have someone who treats you this way in a work environment? And so I have employees now, we're expanding, and I think of how can I help my employees? Some of them have come to me and say, I'm struggling with time management, and I hired a time management and productivity coach. Others have said, I need some help when it comes to my finances. I'm worried about money. I hired Felicia Kelly, and she comes in and she consults with them. So I think, what would I have wanted? A lot of people are only willing to invest in employees when it's like, well, this is business development. But what about that personal development that also reflects over into the business? So
That's key.
I'm just so thankful that what I wanted to join, I was called to build. So many of us are looking for things that don't exist because we're supposed to build it.
That's it. And that's exactly why this show exists. That's exactly why this multimedia network exists. And I'm so grateful to be able to have conversations with leaders like you, because people need to hear stories like these. As a matter of fact, Sade says, love your testimony, hashtag Team Ticora. So there are people in the comments who are saying, Kira's saying, I've been rooting for you from the beginning. And I can definitely tell this is going to resonate with some folks. It doesn't matter. You don't necessarily have to be in the legal industry, whatever industry you are in. Ticora's story is one that you can probably see yourself in at some point and be encouraged by. So I want to talk to our Black entrepreneurs and creatives who are watching right now, who are wondering, okay, Ticora, you're saying that I need to protect my ideas. Well, how can I profit from my ideas through trademarks?
Yes. Oh, fun stuff. Let's talk about the monetization of intellectual property. I think it's one of those things that people don't talk about a lot. And I personally need to do a better job of it. Because people always talk about protect your smarts, protect your brand. But then it's like, well, I do that. how do I make money off of this? You know? So the thing about a trademark is there are several ways that you can make money from that. One is, pretty easy by the marketing and promotion of your business. By securing brand awareness and market share, people are going to be able to identify your business in the midst of your competitors and counterparts. So really having really strong marketing, consistent marketing is going to help a ton, right? In terms of that, also, there are ways in which you can have others pay you to use your trademarks. We see this through like a franchising model or even licensing. Licensing essentially just means I'm going to allow you to use my intellectual property, whether that be my copyright, my patent, my trademark, for a limited time in this limited scope. So, for example, we see this, I think, with the Forbes Business Council or Forbes Coaches Council, excuse me. People either go through some type of training program or they're just paying Forbes money to be able to use their logo on their website, maybe for the year. That's one great way that you can build up a program model that when someone sees your brand name, they associate it with excellence, with core training, being understanding that you're trained in certain methodologies. I think of even like the story brand coaches, like copywriters who are skilled to write in the story brand way. And my copywriter, Ashley Littles of Moxie Media, she's trained in the story brand method. And so I really like that method when it comes to like my brand. So it makes me feel like, okay, I know this person has this requisite knowledge that I need to be able to tell my story in a compelling way. And so if we can create our own models that could really rise to that level of distinctiveness, prestige, respect in the minds of not necessarily your consumers, but your clients' consumers, that is something that is a way that you can not only monetize a trademark, but you can build generational wealth. Another thing is that instead of having a licensing model, you can maybe have a facilitation model. This is where you see Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace. People are not teaching financial peace, but they are so inspired by the baby steps and, all of that type of stuff that people will literally pay for the program, pay for student access. They're trusted, right? They're not just going to let a ton of people in to watch these videos for free and gain access, right? And they have packets and program materials that they get. And so you don't even have to have a licensing model. You could maybe do something similar where by virtue of a book that you put out or a program that you've done, that other people in communities believe in the mission so much that they'll say, other people need to learn about this and know about this, and we're going to step up and provide the facilitation for doing so, right? So there's different ways that you can monetize intellectual property. And if we take a step back, a lot of maybe the brands that we support unknowingly that are kind of just like infused into society, we see that. This is also where we see, and again, you might see franchising models. This is where you say, okay, well, these people are paying not only for the right to use this name. I think of Duck Donuts or Krispy Kreme or Dunkin', maybe not Krispy Kreme, but Duck Donuts for sure. That's a brand here in North Carolina. They have amazing donuts. It's ridiculous. And they've kind of disrupt the donut, space because that hasn't been disrupted in a while. And they have people who will pay money to own the name to that store, probably get help when it comes to setting the store up and things like that, but also that core training. Many people pay for the license. They're interested in franchises for the camaraderie, the name. They have exposed, the income, to be able to do so. But then it's also like, instead of me trying to figure out how to build this business out on my own, I have these people that I can lean on to do so, right? And so then you kind of see that too with some coaches where they're kind of creating junior coaches or people who come in.
Yeah.
All these different ways that you can monetize a trademark. Another way, which I think is really cool, is I don't really see a lot of us really create programs. And then once someone completes your program, having them have a badge that can go on their website, and you can say, I, am a coach and I took this particular certification program. You put that badge on the website and maybe you could put the year 2020, 2018 or whatever. Because guess what happens after a while? Somebody might have completed their program in 2018 or 2008. And so when I go to your website and it's 2020 and I see the last time you completed a program was 2003, I'm like, that was 17 years ago.
Right. Is that information even relevant
Right.
anymore?
But if I can see that you've been consistent in terms of the investing in yourself, there's something that happens in the mind of a consumer that says, this person is really staying up to date about what's happening. This person knows what they're doing,
Absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. And that builds trust.
Yeah. And so I think we have to really start thinking like CEOs. Many of us, my girlfriend, her name is Freely. She talks about you thinking like a MEO, like you need to go from MEO to CEO. So I love when she says that, Yoli Freely, as she talks about, and she's in the financial space, financial coaching space. And I think we really need to adopt the CEO mindset of how can I build something that outlives me? How can I build something that I can pass on to my
Yes.
children? Which is why the trademark is also so important. The trademark, any type of intellectual property is still property. You can pass it down in a will to your children. Like people don't realize that I can actually give my
That's
children
powerful.
this intangible asset. You can leverage a trademark in some of your creative works in bank loans if you ever needed to have some collateral. If you ever even consider selling your business, one of the fundamental questions that they're going to ask is, do you have a trademark? How can you sell what you don't own? So you want me to buy your business and you don't even own the name? These are foundational things that I feel like sometimes I fight with people in my community about. Trademarks aren't that important. You can do it yourself. It's not that big of a deal. It's easy. It's easy until you get that office action and you don't know how to respond. It's easy until you get hit with that cease and desist, and you're like, Ticora, can you help me? It's easy.
And that,
Go ahead.
but you know what? You look, and I can tell you about to get on the road because I want.
Anyway, I'm done.
But that's real because we have a viewer question that asks, and this is from Felice, and she asks, what are the benefits of going it alone or hiring an attorney to complete a trademark? So you have an idea, you recognize that you want to pass this piece of intellectual property down. We're talking to leaders, change makers, entrepreneurs who are thinking at the legacy level. So Ticora, what are the benefits of really hiring someone, an expert like you and your firm to help them secure that trademark?
So the difference between, and there's nothing wrong with DIY divas, okay? So I don't have no problem with somebody saying, listen, I can't afford to do it. I'm going to try to do it on my own. I mean, you may as well do that instead of hiring LegalZoom. All they're going to do is take what you put into your intake form and literally place that into your trademark application. So the benefits of going alone is, you'll probably just save money. It doesn't mean that you'll be doing it correctly, right? And so hiring a skilled trademark attorney, and now I'm seeing more and more that people think, even some attorneys think trademarks are easy, and it's deceptively simple. That's the problem. People think, oh, it's just completing this form and I'm fine. My job, and what I tell people who consider working with us, is my job is to remove legal targets from your back. That's what I do.
Okay.
Some of people who are doing it on their own, you don't even know if you have a legal target on your back. I'm going to tell you right now, people defend their trademarks vigorously, ferociously, because it really is one of the most valuable brand assets you own. It is how people know to support your business. And if there is even a hint that your name is too close to theirs, or you're trying to basically encroach on their prospective clients, they're going to try to stop you. Not only that, it's going to cost a lot of money. I've had one client who came to me and they had to rebrand in the span of a month, and it cost them $25,000 in a month. Whew. What happened was they were doing amazing. They were obviously growing. And here's the thing, this happens really when now you're growing so much that people's eyes are on you. When you're kind of flying under the radar, a lot of times people don't care because you're not a threat. My clients were in South Carolina. They were doing interior closet, basically custom closets and stuff like that. And I mean, they were on the move. And so they were in the kind of on the border of North and South Carolina. They really did well in South Carolina. They said, we're going to expand into the South Charlotte market, right? And so they started doing that. And so what happened was they had the exact same business name as a company in North Carolina. And once they noticed that they were doing that and they were doing the exact same type of work, they sent them cease and desist. They said, you're in violation of our federal trademark. You will have to pay X amount in terms of trademark infringement fees. You have to immediately stop doing your business. And not only that, you will have to rebrand within 30 days. A company like that, they had to remove all their door signage. They had trucks that they had to rewrap. They had to order new business cards, new website. Not only that, I believe they had to even give the domain name that they owned that was driving traffic to their previous website to the other people because they owned it.
Wow.
Not only was it that they were missing out on, the customers and the clientele that they brought up, but think about all the prospective people who visited your brand within the past year. I had plenty of people who spoke to me last summer who come back a year later like, I'm finally ready. I couldn't imagine somebody on my website, but is rerouting to somebody else because I had trademark infringement. I was somebody else gets the clients. So they had
all that equity builds up, and now it's like having to rebuild it.
I want us to shift our mindset to thinking that and honestly, think about it, guys, the most powerful things in this world, probably outside of the people in our lives, are things that we cannot touch. I think faith is very powerful. Your mindset, your mentality, having that untapped potential in your mind, your business ideas, these are all things that you cannot touch, but they're sometimes the most valuable things that you own. And they're the things that can pull you from, the pit to the palace. But the problem is that our society, I believe, really places an emphasis on the tangibles, not the intangibles. And I believe that carries over into how people view trademarks. Is this really that big of a deal? Should I really get this done right now? These are questions that honestly, and let's be real, I'm going to keep it all the way funky since we were family. White folks ain't asking these questions. They already know what it is because they have had generations.
Let's get into it.
Of people in their family who tell them the importance of having a business attorney. And Black people think that Black accountants, or I don't want to generalize, but a lot of my people think that Black accountants or accountants and lawyers are optional. You can do it yourself. If you could do it yourself, you would have went to school for that. Okay. You don't need to be a Jack and Jane of all trades in your business. And this is the reason why many of us are overworked and we're underpaying ourselves and we are tired because we are trying to be graphic designers, logo creators. After a while, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. And if you're still doing that after being years in business, you need to look at your pricing. You need to look at your business model and figure out what's happening and what's going on. And why are you afraid to invest in yourself? Many people are afraid to make investments in themselves, not even necessarily with business, accounting and legal. It could even be coaching or courses that could help you get to the next level. And a lot of that has to do with you don't even trust yourself with making an investment in yourself. So you need to ask yourself, are you good ground? If you would make an investment in yourself, are you going to produce on that? Another thing that really trips me out, and I think it's because we don't know about this, our people, the number one group of people in the Jim Crow South that were lynched, the occupation, they were Black entrepreneurs. The number one group of our people who are like us, who are experts and entrepreneurs trying to grind and build something independent from the white populace in this system, were Black entrepreneurs. That's how powerful Black genius and Black creativity and Black economic independence and wealth is, independent of a system. That in and of itself shows you the power that we have inside of us. And that's why even some of your family and friends cannot understand the concept of you pursuing your own business and trying to make a way for yourself, because you need to be safe and keep that good job. Because in the past, having a good job and working for the white man was safe. It'll keep you alive. Did you even, and this blew my mind, some enslaved Africans, in order to have their full freedom, had to assign the rights to their patents to their slave owners. They couldn't even They couldn't even walk away with the rights to their intellectual property. And so it gobsmacks me to this day when people say, well, one girl was like, I don't know why trademark attorneys charge so much. If you don't get out of my face and off of me.
So that you can benefit for generations. Again, trademarks outlive you. They help you create legacy. And so I want to turn our attention to something that many folks have been talking about lately, at least in the predominantly Black online influencer and entrepreneur circles. B. Simone. So for those not familiar with the situation, I'm going to give a brief overview. B. Simone is a comedian, a social media influencer, and an entrepreneur who recently published a book entitled Baby Girl, Manifest the Life You Want, that sold many copies that helped make her, according to her accounts, a millionaire businesswoman. And so she's being accused of plagiarizing large portions of this book. And she eventually addressed the claims and told her followers that she dropped the ball and was unaware of the alleged copy content because she hired a third party to help her execute and produce and design the book. So some folks have canceled B. Simone because they feel like she's a fraud, while others are sympathetic and they recognize her humanity, and they, decide to continue rocking with her because she has addressed this sort of misstep. So there's, again, been a lot of talk about this, and I'd like for us to discuss it because it's necessary. It's a necessary conversation for our community. Now, Ticora, we talked about, just to kind of give people some historical context, we talked about how important it is for Black people to own our intellectual property and our ideas. You just mentioned how, so many enslaved people had to sign over their rights to their masters. I want to turn the attention to how we deal with intellectual property and creativity within our own community and how we treat one another, and how we do it within our own businesses. So what went wrong here, Ticora?
Well, a couple of things. I think that, and what happened with B. Simone, I think could happen to many other people who do not take creative control over various projects, right? So it's fine if you want to have a book. It's fine if you even want to have someone ghostwrite the book and collaborate with them. But at the end of the day, I believe that if you're going to put your name on something, that you need to make sure you know where it's coming from. If this book did not come from her mind, which a lot of it apparently did not, I think that she would have to ask herself a couple of questions. Who created this? Where did you get it from? Was this taken from someone else? These are questions that she should have been asking. Where was the inspiration behind this come from? Because a lot of the stuff that I saw, they were identical. The pages were identical. They may have redesigned things here and there, but it was quite intentional, whoever it was that was responsible for putting it together, that it was clearly plagiarized and copyright infringement. And at the end of the day, we all have a moral compass, right? When you're taking something from someone. And so I do think that she needs to remedy the situation and making sure that she's involving herself in the creative process, whether it even be like, let's brainstorm some things. It sounds to me like she may have told someone, go find something that will help people do this, if at all, if she was involved in that at all. Otherwise, whoever it was that was responsible for putting the book together and overseeing that, they really should be reprimanded greatly, because it also just, it really hurt and tarnished her brand, So it's like, you did this, and you have the means. You have the means to be able to hire people to help who can do this authentically. So I think what went wrong is that she probably could not have been involved greatly in the creative process and the production of this book. And she trusted whoever it was too much, and that person did not have any checkpoints, or anything like that in place to ensure that, that they were doing the right thing. And I think a lot of people have these business plans and marketing plans, but they don't have an intellectual property plan. Are you actually planning out your creative content? Are you ensuring that this is all really stemming from your own mind? If you're going to use elements or inspiration from someone else's work, do you have an attorney who can advise you about whether or not this is a good or a bad idea? What does that look like? And I feel like someone of her caliber, she may not have known that this was necessary, but now that she does know, she has the capital, hopefully, to invest in that. That's something that she should do, because she has a trademark attorney.
Yeah. And I think that this is so relevant for us to talk about right now because, in this online space, we're creating content, we're producing content at unrivaled levels. There's more content that has been created, I think, in the last 365 days than, maybe the last few hundred years. That's how rapidly this information is really being disseminated, right? And people have access to it, and so ideas do get shared, right? And so I think that you made a very valid point that so many of us, any of us, could end up in a similar situation if we do not do our due diligence. So I think the most obvious way to protect yourself from a B. Simone type of situation is to give credit where it's due. But what does that really look like, Ticora? Because I know that, I borrow things, and, you post things on Instagram, you post quotes on Facebook, you post them on TikTok or whatever channel that you have available to you. How can brands and leaders and entrepreneurs and change makers who are watching really understand, okay, this is what I need to do in order to make sure that I don't get canceled out here?
Yeah, I think a couple of things are, I think it's one thing people think is like, well, if I reshare a picture, and really it's not even resharing, because the reshare app can kind of help with that. But some people will literally download your content, whether it be a video or copy and paste the post, and then repost it on their own feed. And I think a lot of times when people do that, I'm like, first of all, this is intentional, because you're making more work for yourself as opposed to just sharing. Like, I saw another attorney like share one of my posts, and I'm like, sis, like, why would you download my stuff and then share it? Like, come on, And so a lot of times, if you have to work extra hard to share someone's stuff, it's probably because you shouldn't be sharing it in the manner in which you're sharing it in the first place, right? Because Instagram and Facebook make it super easy to share straight from the post. Other people think that, well, I gave the person credit. Accreditation is still not permission. If you are in doubt and you would like to include someone's stuff in a talk, in a book, ask them. Literally message them and ask them, say, this was amazing. Do you mind if I share? Or, hey, I'm actually putting this project together and I really love what you said. Is it possible for me to place this in the book or place this in whatever and give you a credit? Right. And some people may be totally cool with that. But if you're apprehensive about even asking, then it's probably because you shouldn't be using it either. Right. If you're like, well, why not? Why not humble yourself and ask? So a lot of times accreditation should not be viewed as a substitution for permission. Or if someone has something that's public and you're able to share, then share it. Share it directly from that person's page, as opposed to trying to download something and then turn around and share screenshots, of exactly what the person said on your own page. We know why you're doing that, because you want the traffic to your own site and not theirs. Okay. So don't do that. I saw somebody do that to one of my friends. I was like, this is stupid. Like, just share a post. Her post had like 9,000 shares. So you can kind of see, like, come on. All right. And so trying not to do it. So, I mean, asking for permission, resharing directly from, the platform itself by using the internal tools that are already built into the platform. Other things that you can do is even say, propose, like, listen, I would love to include this exact worksheet in my course. Do you have can we set up an affiliate situation where you receive X portions of such and such, or can I pay you a licensing fee? Like, I think we're not even accustomed to having those types of conversations, and we're not even accustomed to requesting and asking and demanding for it from ourselves, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Now, because somebody wants a piece of your IP, and you're like, okay, sure. Like I'm at the point now where I'm like, I probably ain't doing no more challenges, because people making me work too hard. I'm already showing up for free. And then you want me to do all this other stuff. You want me to market for you, tap dance for you. You want me to share my story, share in-feed, out-feed, outside. I'm tired. Okay. Getting paid, and so we have to also be mindful and gentle of how much we're asking of other people to do on our behalf. Right. So I think, when it comes to that, requesting permission if you're not sure, looking at some of the copyright laws, because there's some things that can be shared. Like, there's certain ways, like in my book where I had some Bible quotes and things like that, I had to basically provide, the citation in a certain manner in my book. And I can't even remember how I did it, but, those types of things. Working with experienced people, I think sometimes people undervalue how much insights you can gain just by booking a consultation with somebody.
Yes.
Like people not everybody, but some folks do not want to pay. And I only charge, and I'm saying only because I have a lot of knowledge in my brain and I can literally save your business in 60 seconds or less. I literally can. I charge $50 for a 20-minute discovery call. And people are like, well, I just need to know such and such. You think that's all you need to know.
Right. Until you get on the phone.
Right. Until you get on the phone. And people, that pride will puff up in people. All I need to know is how much you charge. But all you need to know is you're not going to find out. Because I just don't give blind price quotes. I don't know. Like, I don't know how many trademarks you want. I don't know how many classes. I don't know what you already have. I don't know if I want to suggest that we do something a little differently that might make your fee a little lower, right? And so people think it's your process and that you're going to give them what they want. No, I'm not. I'm not telling you that, right? So I think just, saying, let me pay for a consultation with an experienced service provider, expert, paying for someone's time. Or you know what, if you can't pay for somebody's time, can you come to the table and say, listen, things are tight, but here's what I can do. I'm a designer. I can make 10 Canva posts for you in exchange for this. Like, I think people want to, they just want to be like, you give me what I need. That's it. Like, I've had some people hop into my inbox and be like, I have all these problems in the world and XYZ is going on with my brand. Can you please advise me? No, I cannot. I cannot provide advice to non-clients. And I really need to ask more questions. Like, I'm not going to answer legal questions in the DM. That's not where real business is conducted. So I'm
absolutely not.
Higher. I'm calling people higher. Like, you want to call yourself a boss? You want to call yourself like my friend Felicia, she was like, you hired a VA, now you think you're a boss, like, like, you stop. Like, it's not even
look, Felicia listen, she be getting us together, doesn't she? Yes,
why are you like this? It's not even 8. She was like, I wake up before you ready. You need to be ready. Like, so I talk to her every day on the group chat. And I was just like, I gotta step it up. Felicia be up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. She doesn't come by 9 o'clock. I'm almost done. Okay, fine. Okay, gotcha. So that's how she is. But yeah, those are some things that I would say that we can do, that you should do.
So we have a viewer question, and this comes from Janessa. She says, I just trademarked something and I'm in the process of doing another one, but I'm torn about it. There's another Black business that's using the name that I too have been using, and clearly we are both profiting from it. They have a website set up and an Instagram presence, but the name isn't trademarked. So she's asking, should I just trademark the name and continue using it, or should I use another name? I don't want to step on another Black business's toes, but at the same time, it's still business. What do you think, Ticora?
Should I just trademark the name and continue using it, or should I just use another name? Interesting. This is a call. Like, I have so many questions. One, and you don't need to tell me all your business in these comments, but one of the things that I would say is, is the phrase or the name that you guys are jointly using, is it something that's distinctive? Like, is it unique, or is it something kind of like Black brands matter? Like, nobody's going to be able to have exclusive ownership over that. So sometimes people use names and I'm like, that's not even eligible for trademark protection. So you have to ask yourself, is this what we're saying so very common that it's not even worth it, right? So I would say, look into that to see, is this phraseology very common, or is it kind of distinctive? Another thing you need to ask yourself is, okay, if you do trademark it, what are you going to do with it? The whole point of a trademark is to have exclusive ownership over it. So are you prepared to send them a cease and desist? Do you even know if you started using it before them? Are you the infringer, or are they the infringer? Like, who started using it first? Clearly, both of you all are monetizing it. And so I think you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Another thing is that, do you have the marketing budget to outmarket them? Like, even if you do trademark it, are you still going to be able to have a footprint in the marketplace to stop people from knowing that this is not the brand to go to and support? So you have to ask yourself all those questions. So it's not a cut and dry answer. Again, this is why I'm like, I don't know, right? So we have to ask ourselves, and sometimes I have to look at the trademark and say, oh, okay, don't worry about it. I had to tell people that. Don't even try to trademark this. You know,
Yeah.
another issue. Now, let's talk. Look, can y'all stop doing this? Can y'all stop naming your businesses? Or I don't even want to say stop naming your businesses, but here's what I want you to know. If you name your business the Black such and such, just know that's a weak trademark. Not because it has Black in it, but descriptive trademarks are some of the weakest trademarks that you can get. And it's going to be very difficult for you to police a descriptive trademark. What are examples of that? Black Lawyers Blog. If I literally name my blog Black Lawyers Blog, that's descriptive because it describes the people that the blog is for. Do you think I'm going to be able to stop another Black lawyer from using Black Lawyers Blog descriptively? No. No matter what American Airlines does, it cannot stop Delta from saying that they're an American airline company. Right? So just be mindful of very descriptive trademarks, because if that's the case, Janessa, then you ain't got no dog in the fight if it's super descriptive, because you can't stop really somebody from using the name descriptively. It's going to be very expensive to police and protect a descriptive trademark. Descriptive trademarks are better for slogans or hashtags a little bit, right? Because you need to have a very distinctive brand name, and then the actual tagline can help clarify what the main offer is. That's one way to do it, not the only way, right? So I would say, you need to consider a variety of options and possibly schedule a call or a consultation so you can really know what to do. And you know what? Be okay with letting it go. Be okay with saying there's something bigger in me. There's a better name in me. And a lot of times we have to leave old brands behind, old names behind to go to a whole nother level. But many of us want to hold on to something because a lot of times you want to hold on to it because somebody else is using it. Not because you really like it all that much. Not because it's really awesome. It's just like somebody else sees the value in this and I'm going to fight. I'm ready to fight. I'm like, dude, like I tell people, I was like, your ideas were valuable before someone else wanted them.
Oh, wow. Yes.
They were worthy of protection.
That's a word.
Yeah, they were worthy of being protected before somebody stole it.
Yeah.
So I would say 50% of people come to me because they're like, somebody stole my name, or I'm scared that someone's going to steal my name. And the other 50% say, I'm scaling my business and I want to make sure I'm protected before I really blow up. So some people are kind of fueled by being proactive. Others are reactive. So you have to ask yourself, which one are you?
So, Ticora, another influential online entrepreneur, before I go into this next question, thank you for answering that. Janessa is actually on live, and hopefully Janessa that clarifies some things for you. So another influential online entrepreneur, Dana Chanel, is finding herself in some hot water after multiple customers have gone public about their experiences with her companies. This is relevant because another online entrepreneur by the name of Genesis Dorsey recently told her story on Instagram, where she alleges that Dana Chanel stole a tagline from her and profited from it by creating essentially a thought leader platform, a tour, merchandise, and other things. And so Genesis admits that she did not seek legal support because it was very early on in her business and she felt like she didn't have nearly as many followers as Dana. And so because of that, she felt like she wouldn't be believed. So let's talk about this, because I'm sure there are many entrepreneurs and creatives watching this right now who feel like, some of the same things may have happened to them or could happen to them. So, and I know that Kira is asking, at what point of the creative process do you recommend trademarking or copywriting? After you've created or before beginning?
If you can, at the onset, Kira. So like before you even launch the product or program, especially if you're very solid in what the name is, that's ideal. If not, very, very shortly thereafter. But the best time, hands down, is before trademarking, before you launch, and copywriting after you publish the work. So that's what I say. Okay. So I know Genesis. She's awesome. And I remember years ago her stating that Dana stole something from her in terms of the phraseology. I also have a dear friend. Her name is Ty Jackson, and she also said that Dana has stolen much of her content as well. So this has been going on for years. I just think that with that particular platform, Dana has millions. If even back then, she had hundreds of thousands of followers. I think now over a million. That a lot of people in that particular sprinkle of Jesus machine are just diehard fans. I even saw the other day where she was reprimanding an employee, and I was disgusted. So that's just my take on that. I think that my spirit don't feel right about her, but I think that that's just a part of what she says. And I think I remember even her interaction, either it was with Genesis or someone else, and she was like, "You stole this from me," and she kind of was like, "Well, we could have worked together, and this could have helped you out." Like what Dana was saying to Genesis was nasty. She was like basically saying, "You should be thankful that I posted your quote. Now more people know about who you are." Right. And so that's the spirit in which this person is operating in. I do believe that people are considering some type of not just from the her taking content, which is how it seems like she's built that particular platform, but also some people have hired her for her app building services, and she really doesn't build apps. She basically probably outsources that to someone else and then takes creative control over someone else's IP and then charges high monthly premiums. So one of the things that I hope people are doing is actually contacting the Attorney General's office. It's one thing to say, I'm going to join or try to think about doing a class action lawsuit. Generally, you need 100 people to create a class in order to bring a lawsuit. But one of the things that, it would be great if people who really believe that they were harmed by her is for them to file a complaint with the state's attorney general's office. Because the more people who file complaints with the state attorney general's office, especially with their consumer protection division, that's going to trigger the state attorney general's office to actually do an investigation. And so, that's going to be helpful. I don't know if people have people advising on the class or whatever, but that would be something smart to do. Consumer protection, there are divisions of consumer protection, and I had an internship, and a lot of times it's really unfortunate, but the people who are involved, who are really victims of such predatory behavior, alleged predatory behavior, because I don't know, nothing's been decided, are generally people who are low income, are people who are really just trying to get things off the ground. And so they really follow this person. They believe the hype. They believe a lot of talk. And I think I want to push us to really go beyond the talk. Who else has she built an app for that is successful? Most of the time, the case study that they continue to promote is her app. Whose app is really successful? Who is doing well? Who outside of that particular family can provide a testimonial that they are doing great things, right? And so a lot of times what I see is them get richer and richer and richer and their platform growing. But I'm trying to figure out who are the people that they're helping. Not saying that they haven't helped folks and that some folks have not had, when it comes to success. But I would look into that. Like, who are these people? And here's the thing about this. And it reminds me of a situation that I was in about a month and a half ago, where I discovered that there was a young lady who was a Black woman, and she was pretending to be a trademark attorney, and she was taking people's money, and she was not providing them with adequate legal service. One, because she was incompetent to do so, and two, because she didn't know what she was doing. I had to discover that, and I understand what Genesis is going through, because I had to issue a public statement on behalf of my client. And some of the feedback that I got from people in our own community was that they were shocked at me that I released a statement, that they seemed disappointed in me, right? And a lot of times what happens is this whole mentality of, well, what happens in our community stays in our community. Why couldn't you all handle this behind closed doors? It kind of like that whole, what happens in this house stays in this house. And what that does is it breeds a lot of shame, a lot of resentment and depression in the person that you're requesting silence from, even though they were the victim. So I hope Genesis, and I'm praying for her, and I hope that she continues to tell her story, and hopefully it will allow others to tell their story too, because I know of other people who were harmed or allegedly harmed by that particular person's dealings or her family's dealings, right? And so I would just say that with that situation, we need to move beyond what's shiny and what looks good on the surface and start demanding some stats. Like, I can tell you how many trademarks have I filed? Almost 350. I can tell you that I have a 98.5% success rate. I can tell you that I almost have, I think, a 95% success rate with overcoming refusals, right? I can tell you how long I've been in business, how many things I've done, where, if I'm licensed to practice law, right? And so sometimes we get caught up in, okay, they have a great social media platform and they've been able to build these things, but then we're not asking for any meat and substance. And I found that with my own self when I invested in a business coach. And I'm like, I thought that I paid all this money and I would receive this level of service. But because I was caught up in this person can help me reach this level of income, I didn't do my own due diligence by asking the right questions. And sometimes
Yeah.
what happens is we're not asking the right questions. Move beyond the beautiful brand and aesthetic and even the beautiful people. Because beautiful people like to buy from beautiful people.
They do and also too, I think a lot of the challenge around the situation with Dana Chanel is they're doing this in the name of Jesus, right? And so that
Let's talk
really
about it.
that that sort of predatory behavior shows itself, I think, often in strong faith communities.
It's
And a lot of people have said, in their accounts, that they trusted that brand, they trusted the companies that they gave their money to because they might have a scripture in the bio, or they constantly talk about God and things like that. And so I think that's one thing that we have to be cognizant of as well, is to not let someone who is peddling faith trick you into really not doing your due diligence, to your point.
Exactly. And that makes it even more disheartening, and I think that's where they get the sprinkle part of Jesus. It's not a full heap.
Ooh.
So you're just getting a little, sprinkle, right?
Little Salt Bay, little
Right.
Salt Bay action.
Yeah, I just think it's so funny. You got Alakazam apps, which is isn't that a witchy word or whatever, which is fine. But I just thought it was kind of weird. You got the two together, but that's probably why you got a sprinkle, right? You need to be like, let me dig a little deeper, right? And so, it's very unfortunate. I think the thing about it is that what you I'll just speak to the kingdom folk. If you really listen, I haven't heard anything beyond a couple of scriptures here and there, but I don't hear Jesus or God in what they're speaking. And even the other day when she was speaking with her employee and she basically publicly like put her on her platform, spoke disparaging to her and relegated her to an inferior position. I did not see the love of God in that at all, but many people in the comments did. And it made me sad because I said, wow, people associate love with abuse so much that they thought her speaking to her in that manner was loving. Again, you can correct someone without crushing them. And I believe that she crushed her, with her words. And it's just unfortunate. So I think we have to do our due diligence. And you need to look at people's fruit. If you really look at that person's fruit, you would see that they are not, in my opinion, of God. And you know what? People can say, well, gosh, that's pretty harsh, Ticora. You're judging her. I can judge another believer. People think that it says, judge not, lest ye be judged. But it actually says in the Bible that we can judge other believers. I'm not judging to condemn her to hell. I'm more so judging and saying the behavior in which I'm seeing and the fruit in which I'm seeing is not something that I like at all. And it's just too many people who have had the same interaction to sit up here and be like, well, gosh, maybe those people just had a bad experience. Probably not, and I've heard stories of them, basically not doing any work for people. And basically the person has had to remit payment for everything, especially when it comes to those app services, So, I think that this is a year of exposure. And I believe
I've
that
been saying the same thing as well.
and I believe that wholeheartedly, that that's what's happening, that in this particular year of exposure, that we're actually seeing people, and who knows, they may not fall from grace, but at least the wool has been pulled over or away from some people's eyes, and some people still won't care. They're still going to follow. And again, we have to move beyond people being pretty. A lot of that is people like to look at them, and they are beautiful people. But if your behavior, you know, is disgusting and nasty and your fruit is bad, you can look and see a beautiful apple on the inside of it is rotten. So I think we just have to be really mindful, and do our due diligence and ask questions. And you can ask questions. Some people feel so bad about asking questions because they're like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to offend. As long as you're not asking questions that are offensive, you should be fine. Like someone asked me, in the tone in which they asked was was kind of nasty. They said, well, what's the difference between you and LegalZoom? Ooh, I don't like your tone. Check it.
Right. First of all, take that bass out your voice.
Right. You come down to, it's like, first of all, I'm a boss. Second of all, I employ you. Third of all, I'm a person.
Right.
I think, it was, but my husband was like, that's a good question. I was like, all right, fine. He's like, grace, grace, grace. So I'm just like, my grace meter is full, right? But no, I think, you can ask questions in order to gain insight and clarity. And that's what we really have to become skilled at doing. Not asking questions because you believe, man, I'm asking questions and it's going to offend someone. If you feel that way, you need to get delivered from that. Asking questions is going to say, is this person the right fit for me? When I provide trademark legal services, y'all, we can be friends for a while. The process takes 1.5 years. So you better make sure that you like me. You better make sure you like my process. You better start asking those questions about what it's like to receive service, because you don't want to be bound and trapped into these long-term contracts, or when someone gets your money, they treat you poorly.
Yes.
Does that same level of service that you're providing to me going to extend beyond that? And I forgot that I paid here. I mean, for me, I'll pay people and I'm like, well, that was a bad investment. I'm not doing it again. I actually paid Sprinkle of Jesus to have a banner on the app,
Oh, okay.
And even the service delivery with that, I'm like, hey, you guys said that you were going to post my, banner on this day and that day. And they were like, oh, sorry. And then they put it up, and then they were putting up the wrong banner. And I'm like, okay, you guys are saying your bosses and this and that, but whoever is running the back end office, you're calling, trying to get voicemails. And this was a couple years ago. Maybe they have improved. I'm not sure, based on some of the feedback or whatever. But I remember and I forgot about making that investment because I was just like, well, that was silly. And that just let me know, like, everything that glitters isn't gold.
Yeah.
And, it also shows the power of good marketing.
It does, right?
How many people are winning because they just they think that they're great, and they're going to make sure the world knows that they're great. And the people who are humble and docile, we really need y'all. Like, can y'all speak up? Can y'all find
Absolutely.
your voice? Because there's so many people that are assigned to your business and they don't know about you because you feel like you're an imposter. And I always love to say, it's impossible to be an imposter if you're in the will of God. It's impossible, right? So, and I felt that way even starting my firm. And after a while, I'm like, this is what I was called to do. And
yes,
this is what I was created to do. How can I be an imposter? And this is my seat. It has my name on it. This is my thing right now. This is where I'm supposed to be. I cannot be an imposter. This seat has my name on it.
yes. And this is why this show exists, because again, these conversations are really letting people into the brains and the thoughts of leaders like yourself, entrepreneurs. And I believe we're moving into a season where people are going to start valuing thought leadership above and beyond influence. And so I think that distinction is being made clear very much so right now. A lot of these influencers, we're starting to see beyond the veil, and a lot of people are starting to understand that everything is not as it seems. And so that's why I love having conversations with thought leaders, because you all have put your work in. You've mastered your calling, your skills, and you're sharing from your abundance. Because we've been here for an hour and a half, and you've been dropping gems all since minute one, right? And so I think that it is so important while people are doing their due diligence about who they need to hire and what support they need to seek. Again, make sure that you look beyond the slick marketing, beyond the red bottoms, beyond the Chanel, beyond the Louis bags, beyond the dope photos and colors and graphics, because this is a season of exposure. And if you're not doing right, you better get right. That's all I got to say.
Lord, I'm like, what's going on? And it's so true, because, and I think what is also happening is there are going to be people that are sent to expose. And I think people get really uncomfortable with that. And it's like, again, going back to my situation, people were saying like, gosh, you guys could have handled this differently. But after I put that public statement out stating that this individual is not a licensed attorney, I got at least maybe 10 emails from different people who hired her, paid her thousands of dollars, and their brands were not protected. Their trademarks were not filed. People paying her, up to $3,500. And they're, in the middle of a pandemic, because they felt like, I'm investing in my brand. These are the stories that I was hearing behind closed doors. And I think it's very difficult for some people to, it's very easy to judge when you don't have any authority. You don't have anybody that answers to you. You don't have to make any key decisions. You're mainly a spectator, right? And so, spectators, they observe, and then they somehow think that by their mere observance or observation, that somehow they know how to do someone's job better than them. But you don't realize what's happening behind the scenes. You don't realize every single decision and burden that that person has to really shoulder in order to make some of these key decisions. And so, when people are stepping forward and they're telling their story, there's a lot that had to happen for them to get up the courage to do so. So we have to really be mindful of that when people step out and they're sharing, this is what happened to me. This is my story. This is, what's right and what's wrong. It's hard. And there's a conflict there, especially for people like us, because especially if the person who's doing the harm is someone who looks like us or could be kinfolk, right? It feels like they're kinfolk. You feel a type of loyalty to them, even if they were disloyal to you, right?
Yes.
And sometimes moving and operating in integrity, it's not going to feel good all the time. Everything isn't all love and light, okay? Some of this is going to be love and what's right. And doing what's right doesn't always feel good.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Now, since this is the Think Like a Thought Leader show, I couldn't let us finish up without you talking about some of the thought leaders that have impacted you on your journey.
Oh, wow. This is good. Okay, some of the thought leaders that have impacted me on my journey. Oh man, so many. Megan Ward. Megan Ward is just this dynamic, amazing woman. You spell Megan Meagan. She is my mentor, and she actually speaks about being an influencer, but not in the normal way that people influence. She even speaks about thought leaders being influencers. And I never really thought of myself as an influencer, but technically I am, as a thought leader, as an expert in my own lane and in my own field. Many people trust my voice. Thousands of people trust my voice when I say this is a good person to go with. When I give someone my stamp of approval, when I say that this is the right or the wrong way to do things, you don't even realize the power in your own words. And so she really taught me that there is power when you're operating in your own lane and zone of genius, and making sure that we are leveraging our platforms for the greater good, but also for some brand collaborations, which I hope to get into more of that later. And so I really never thought about influencing in that particular realm Because traditionally you just think, oh, it's all pretty pictures and people go on
Mm-hmm.
places and they look beautiful and they look happy. And it's like, no, actually, there's a whole different lens of that. So I would say her being a dynamic thought leader has definitely changed me when it comes to really stepping up in my role as a thought leader. Felicia Kelly, hands down, when it comes to just breathing new life into my finances, understanding biblical wealth, being a wealth advocate, and being comfortable with that, and also saying I'm deserving of great wealth and resting in that. She
Mm-hmm.
completely changed my mindset around money. Working with her and hiring her was one of the best decisions that I've ever made for my business brand, and being connected with her ultimately day in and day out. I'm continuing to find ways of stepping out and taking those big leaps, hiring employees, about to hire my first attorney, right? Those things are like, would scare me. Okay. I mean, absolutely scare me because I'm like, okay, you're a contractor. Like, well, if I want to end this contract, I could. Right.
Yeah.
When you have an employee, it's like, I'm responsible for this person's income. And that's a
Yeah.
huge weight that people don't want to carry. But I realized, Ticora, you were designed to create jobs and better jobs. Right. So, me actually saying, you're not this solopreneur, solo lawyer, you're a CEO. Like, you need to be the face of this and have more people to come in. So definitely her, when it comes to like wealth and things like that. And yeah, I think that those two would be some people that I would definitely say. I'm sure there are many, many, many more. And I'll say Jerisha Hawk. Jerisha Hawk was my very first business coach, and she completely changed my mindset around pricing my services and really pushing me because I was pricing so low. I didn't realize why I was struggling in terms of like, I feel like I'm racking up credit card debt. I feel like I can't even afford to hire a virtual assistant. I can't afford to invest in my business. I was making money, but I wasn't keeping any of it. And I feel
Mm-hmm.
like every time
Mm-hmm.
I turn around, I'm working so hard, but it feels like I'm not seeing the benefit of it. And so I began to realize, how can I have services that sell? And I realized that with her. And then I'll say my father, God rest his soul. I think that he was the best thought leader that I ever had the honor and privilege of studying under. He was the most brilliant man that I knew and that I know. He's, just it's hard for me to speak about him in past tense. But one of the things that was a gift that my father gave me after he passed away was after he passed, I was literally helping plan a funeral and working on trademark applications.
Mm.
I was still doing work in the middle of me, a time that I should have stopped and been able to pause and grieve. I was working, working hard. And that showed me that what I had built in terms of my law firm up until this point was a burden and bondage and not something that was
Mm.
a blessing. It didn't give me freedom. It was a ball and chain. And so I realized that I was bound to my business. And I don't think that, I don't know when I would have realized that that's what I had built. And it probably would have eventually happened. And I hate that he's gone, but that was a gift that came out of that season last May. And once I realized, I said, what did you do? What did you create? You created a business that really had you bound up in fear because I was too afraid to bring somebody else on and teach them about how we can serve clients because I was afraid somebody was going to take something from me. Right?
Mm.
And so I was operating in a very deep scarcity mindset until I realized I can't do this anymore. And so I ended up hiring a part time attorney that started in January. And I began to really look at my business and say, how can I duplicate myself? Some of us are afraid to ask that question. How can you make another you? How can you make somebody who's going to be able to show up in the same spirit of excellence as you? And if you're able to begin to do that, then you can actually become a CEO, not a MEO, as Freely said.
Yes.
And so I hate to say it, but I realized I was doing that effectively when my line sister died in February, and that was terrible. I literally couldn't function like with my dad. I was able to just keep it moving. I was rolling, but I wasn't,
Right.
planning her funeral. I was grieving and I just said, I can't show up to work. I can't do anything. But because I had a team in place, they literally were taking care of stuff. And I looked and I was like, this sucks, but you did it right, Ticora. Like I actually got to properly grieve her uh,
Yes.
because I had people in place. And so I just encourage anybody that I don't want it to take you a loss of people who are close to you to really begin to look at your business in a different way. So I would say that my father, my wonderful daddy, yeah, he was the best thought leader I know.
That's incredible. Ticora, where can folks go to work with you? Because listen, you have just been so generous with your time, your insights, your perspectives, your story. And I'm sure there are people watching with ideas brewing and saying, I need some expert support.
Yeah, yeah. So you can go to creatorslawfirm.com. And if you go to creatorslawfirm.com, you will be able to click the contact button and then submit an inquiry form. You will receive an email from clients at Creators Lawyer. Check your spam if that doesn't come to you. And there will be a scheduling link, and they're inviting you to schedule your 20-minute discovery call. Yes, there is a cost of $50, but well worth that and more. So we can kind of have a discussion and we can chat. Also, you can follow me on Instagram at Ticora Davis or at Creators Law Firm. But the really juicy stuff is at Ticora Davis, my first and last name.
And Kira Kimball says, I put in my request while she was talking. So, you might have an inbox full of inquiries, Ticora. Thank you so much for taking the time to stop by the show, to give us some insights around how Black entrepreneurs can really protect our ideas and really build wealth through intellectual property, trademarks, copyrights, and things like that. So any final words for those watching about the benefits of really protecting their smarts, Ticora?
My final words would be that I want you all to really begin to ask yourself, you know, why am I afraid to either invest in myself or protect my brand? Or if that's not the case, I want you to also begin to make a list of all the things that you believe are intellectual property. I mean, I want you to write down if you have photos, videos, emails, training manuals, taglines, trademarks, logos, copyrights. I want you to write down if you have unique recipes, frameworks, formulas. Begin to look and see at your creative works, your programs, the ideas that are in your mind. Begin to write those things out and write down every single thing that is in you or that has already come out of you, because you have to ask yourself, what do I do with all of these things? I leave you with this. Your ideas are valuable. The reason why they're valuable is because God trusted them with you. He let them come down, come into your mind, rest in your belly, ready for you to birth. And so that's more enough like confirmation and validation. It's actually all that you need to know that what you have is worthy of putting out into this world, but for you to steward appropriately by protecting your brand, not just with the legal aspects, but the many other aspects that are needed along the way. So those are my final thoughts, my final words. I do hope that if we are not able to work with you and provide you with service, that you would stay connected with me on social media, because I believe that even just staying connected with other thought leaders like myself and many others, it will provide you with rich insight into what you need to do to protect your brand and build generational wealth.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Now that's a word. Listen, that is a word for the people. Again, thank you for stopping by.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Courtney.
Now, if you enjoyed this conversation and it inspired you or motivated you in some way, I'd love to hear about it. And I'm sure Ticora would too. So go ahead and drop in the comments and tell us what your number one aha moment was from this rich discussion. And please feel free to spread the word about this conversation by tapping the share button or tagging a friend in the comments. And don't forget to connect with Ticora, learn more about her work, her law firm at creatorslawfirm.com. And finally, in an effort to stay true to our vision of remaining unbought, unbossed, and unapologetic, we've created the opportunity for you, for those of you who enjoy this content, to support us monetarily through Patreon. So for as little as $5 a month, you can invest in a network dedicated to creating programming like this for the uplift and the enrichment of Black entrepreneurs, leaders, and change makers globally. So to patronize us, please visit thinklikeathoughtleader.com and scroll down and hit that green button that says Let's Build This. Also, if you're more comfortable with giving a one-time donation, you can hit that blue button so you can do so. Now, your investment will help build a groundbreaking multimedia company that will shift paradigms and empower a generation of leaders and entrepreneurs with thoughtful programming and high quality content. So again, to learn more about how you can help us keep this going, visit thinklikeathoughtleader.com. Thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in, who have engaged with us. It's so appreciated. And until next time, bye.